My name is Patrick. I'm a senior program manager on the Microsoft Edge developer experience team, and I've been at Microsoft for about 2 years now, but I've actually been working in the web development tooling area for almost 10 years now. And today I'm here to talk to you about how the Edge DevTools team at Microsoft is reinventing tooling in the Edge browser. So let's get started. Edge, the browser, is based on Chromium, as you might already know. And we not only use Chromium, the open source browser engine project, but we actually also contribute to it pretty heavily. We've been, over the years, contributing lots of performance improvements, bug fixes, web platform features, and so on. And Chromium also includes its own DevTools inside the same project. And we've actually been contributing to DevTools as well. Over the past few years, we've contributed hundreds of different improvements to DevTools. And DevTools itself is about 15 years in Chromium. So if you think about it in terms of web tooling, where frameworks and libraries and build tools come and go very, very often, it's a really long time for a tool to have been around for so long. And by now, it's really an integral part to any web developer's journey through web development. And so we think a lot about how do we want to evolve DevTools and whether we want to evolve it too much as well. And for a lot of the things we do, we agree with other browser DevTools out there. We do similar experiences so that it's easy for all of you to switch between browsers and do cross-browser testing. But in some areas, we also have our own opinions about how DevTools should be helpful to you all. And so the web, through these 15 years, has evolved tremendously. It is now at the point where it has so much capabilities that it's possible to use web technologies to create applications that are really quite complicated. You can even install PWAs on desktop and so on. You can even create applications that are so complicated that they are desktop client-side applications like VS Code, for example, which uses web technologies. And because of this, DevTools has had to adapt over these years, right? Because the web gained more capabilities, it had to gain more debugging capabilities at the same time. And so there's been this balance of adding more and more features to it while trying to keep it simple enough for new users and learners and early in careers to start using as well. Edge DevTools is very similar to Chromium DevTools, as you can see, but it has its own look and feel and its own set of functionalities that we'll go over in a second. So today, I'd really like to address those three strategy pillars. We think in the Edge DevTools team that Edge DevTools should address real-world use cases, that it should integrate effortlessly into your workflows, your existing workflows, and that it should be radically user-friendly. So let's get started with the first strategy pillar, which is this idea that Edge DevTools should really address real-world use cases. And the strategy that we employ to do this is really quite simple, is that we actually listen to users. And it may seem pretty obvious like this, but not everybody does this to the extent that we do. On our team, and this is true for the whole of Microsoft actually, we really listen to customers in a lot of different ways, and we really pay attention to what people are telling us. We have built many different ways for people to send us feedback about our products. This is true for Microsoft Edge, the browser itself. There's a way to send feedback directly from within the browser. And this is also true for DevTools. If you pop open DevTools right now in Edge, you will see a little icon in the top right corner of the window that once you click it, you'll have a pop-up window that appears where you can enter information about the problem you're having, or maybe an idea that you have for a new feature. You can even include a screenshot to describe the problem better. And you can leave an email address if you want us to follow up with you as well. And know that all of these feedback that we receive daily, hundreds of it, we do read each one of them manually. Like we have people on the team who do these triaging of new issues coming in, and we track those things and we put them in our bug database and we prioritize them. So as soon as one of them makes sense, because multiple people are having the same problem, for example, then we prioritize those things and we work towards a fix. The other thing that we do as well to try to listen to real-world use cases is we actually sit down with people. There are lots of people around, lots of web developers who are building extraordinarily complicated web experiences today. And we want to learn from them directly. Where are they getting stuck using DevTools? Which other tools would help them? And being at Microsoft, we are very fortunate because there are many teams around us who do build those really complicated websites today. And so I want to give you one example where recently we actually sat down with the Microsoft Teams engineering team. And Teams is a very long-running application. You may log in on a Monday morning and then only quit the application on a Friday night, or actually you may not even stop the application at all until maybe your computer decides to restart next month. And so because of that, memory, the way that you manage your memory inside the application matters a lot. Because even a few things that are left over, like a few dumb nodes that are not being properly destroyed, for example, may amount to a large memory being used at the end of the day or the end of the week. And so sitting down with this team, we evaluated the different options and the different problems, and we understood that there were two types of problems. One, V8, the JavaScript engine that powers Chromium and other products as well, was having a few bugs, and we managed to understand what those bugs were and fix them for every users of V8. They were impacting the way that the memory tool in DevTools was showing objects that are retained in memory. So we fixed those. And the other thing we did is we identified a tool that would help the Teams engineering team quite a lot. And so this new tool is now available in Microsoft Edge DevTools, and it's called Detached Element. And it's a really good tool if you want to investigate DOM memory leak problems. A DOM memory leak happens when you start managing DOM nodes in JavaScript, creating them, deleting them later, doing all sorts of complicated things like that. And at some point, if you have a bug that slips in your code, you may actually retain DOM elements longer than you need them to be available in the application. And that, as again, if you leave the application running for a whole week, this may amount to a large amount of memory being used at the end of the week. And so this tool makes it really easy to find them and fix those problems. We did the same exercise with many different teams at Microsoft, and I'm just going to go through 4 quick examples just to list some of those features that we added to Microsoft Edge DevTools to make your lives easier. One is in the memory panel, we made it easier to actually filter the memory heap snapshot by node types. So once you're reviewing the list of objects that are in memory, you can filter them by the types of nodes that they are, so that if you have a suspicion of where a memory leak may come from, it makes it a lot easier for you to find those problems quickly. Second, we added a feature to the network panel that makes it easy to see how a request was fulfilled. Third, in the performance panel, we added a functionality to unminify performance profiles. That's really interesting because if you're debugging your website in production, very often you've got minified code, right? The source code that you originally had may have gone through a build step where it got bundled and minified, and the function names at the end of this don't really make sense anymore. And so when you're trying to do this performance optimization in production, then those function names don't make any sense to you anymore. And we added this functionality to use source maps to unminify the function names in the performance panel as well. And last, we also added a feature where it's possible from DevTools now to retrieve source maps at runtime securely using the Azure symbol server. And it's very easy if you use ADO already, Azure DevOps, in your workflows. If you use this to produce debugging symbols, now with DevTools, starting with version 99, you're able to retrieve source maps from this symbol server directly and securely in production. If you want to learn more about these features and many others that we've worked on over the past few years, you can check out our blog at blogs.windows.com/msedgedev. And one thing that I want to note about those 4 examples is that they're not really related to any fancy new web feature, right? We're not in this game to try to cover every new API that comes out right now and that may be only available in one browser. But instead, those features are really grounded in actual real-world problems that people are having today. So as a quick recap so far, we have this feedback mechanism in the browser and in DevTools. We also talk with actual product teams directly, but there are another few ways that we use as well to stay grounded in these real-world use cases as well. One of which is the web we want. This is an initiative that's cross-browser. It's a website that, as a web developer, you can go there and sort of send your wish list. If there's a feature that the web does not have today, in no browser at all has that, then you can go to the web we want and signal that it actually would make sense for you if the web had that. And browser vendors do pay a lot of attention to this website and other sources as well. So it's a really good idea if you want to socialize an idea that you've had and that you wish the web had. And the web we want also has DevTools ideas there, so you can go and take a look at them or even submit your own. And our team, as well as others, do keep an eye on this list and try to prioritize those things. Another way that we also work to listen to our users is we actually participate in standards and specification discussions. At the moment, for example, we're involved in evolving source maps. We are actually making proposals to make source maps better for the future of JavaScript debuggability on the web. And so this way we collaborate with the community of, on this open source project and trying to work with everybody to make sure that the tools that we deliver are actually solving real world use cases. And last month, we actually also launched a new feedback repository. It's a GitHub repository, actually, so you can find it on github.com/Microsoft Edge/DevTools. And it's a really good place if you want to have longer form back and forth discussions with our team directly. We wanted to have this place where everyone could discuss about features and tips and ideas and even bugs out in the open, right? So we would be really happy to welcome you all on this repository channel, on this feedback channel. So feel free to drop in and join in on the conversation. So this leads me to the second part of our strategy and of this agenda, where we think Edge DevTools should integrate effortlessly into your existing workflows. And this is an area where we have a bit of a different vision than other players in this industry, where we really think that DevTools should integrate right where you need them. And we think this is important because development environments right now are incredibly complex, and everybody's got their own environment, right? They're very unique and varied. And so we need to sort of show up everywhere we can. And we're already really fortunate because Edge already works today on Windows and Mac and Linux. You can also automate it on, using WebDriver or Playwright or Puppeteer. DevTools is also integrated in PWA. So we're trying to show it in all of the places where it does matter for us to be there. But there's this one other place that's really interesting to us where we want to reduce the friction inside your dev loop, right? We want to work with your editors instead of next to them. As an example, to make this clearer, you've probably already done this dance where you've got your editor on one side and then the browser on the other side, and you're tweaking some CSS layouts in the browser using DevTools because it makes a lot of sense to do it there. But then once you're happy with the results, you're trying to copy paste all of the changes you made in DevTools and put them back into your editor, hoping that you didn't forget anything. And that's when usually problems start appearing because you probably forgot something. And once you refresh the browser, then everything's gone. And so that's an area that's really interesting to us. So we created some ways to make DevTools work better together with your development environment. And here is one simple example that we released some time ago. It's a screenshot of DevTools where the toolbar at the top has a button that says Set Root Folder. And the way that it does this is by detecting automatically if you're working with a local file system or a local website on localhost server. So once this is detected by DevTools, it can suggest you to set this root folder. And if you do that, it will map all of your changes that you make in DevTools from that point on to your original source files in VS Code directly. So you can safely work in the styles panel, for example, make those CSS tweaks, and they'll not be lost because they'll be replicated directly in your original source files. But we also go much further. The screenshot that you're seeing here is one of our extension. We have this Edge DevTools extension for VS Code. And what that means is that we're able to embed directly inside VS Code the elements panel, the network panel, the console messages that your website logs, as well as the browser viewport directly within this one window of VS Code. So it's really great for tweaking CSS again, if I take this example again, because you can start making those real-time changes in the styles panel, in the elements panel of DevTools, and see the results live in the browser viewport next to it. But you don't have to be scared of losing anything, because the extension will actually map all of your changes directly to your original source files in VS Code right next to it. And this actually even works with precompiled CSS. So if you use Sass, for example, this will work as well. This extension is also integrated in the VS Code JavaScript default debugger. So as you start debugging JavaScript, you'll have a chance to click on this button to open the DevTools extension, and then use the elements panel or the network panel as you're stepping through JavaScript code. You can see your network requests, for example, and this is a very smooth and seamless experience. And a few weeks ago, we also released this other extension. This is also an extension that embeds DevTools, but not in VS Code this time, in Visual Studio. So it's a preview version. It's quite early in the making, so it's a little bit more limited, but it's the same approach where we want to take the browser and the DevTools and embed them as much as we can in your existing workflows, and in this case, in the Visual Studio IDE. And as a quick note as well, it's the same team who makes the browser DevTools in Edge, as well as the VS Code extension, as well as the VS extension. These are not different versions of DevTools that have to be tailor-made for VS, for example. They're the same thing that are embedded. And so what that means is if we start making changes to the elements panel in the normal browser DevTools and we start making them better, then they'll actually automatically get better in VS Code as well, and VS as well automatically. So we would love for you to give them a try. They're both in the marketplace. Here are the URLs for them: aka.ms/edgetools for VS Code and aka.ms/edgetools for VS. So as a quick recap so far, those are a few ways that we're working on this long-term effort to make DevTools available on demand. And our goal at the end of the day is to almost make this a little bit magical to some degree, where if you have fewer windows to deal with, fewer panels to manage, if everything just shows up where it needs to be right when you need it, then it becomes to feel a little bit magical, and that's a good sign that we've made our job well. In any case, this is the direction for us. We will continue over the coming year for sure, and we would love for you all to tell us what you think about this. So send us your feedback. If you think that there are other tools that DevTools should be integrated in, let us know. Other workflows, anything that would make your life easier, just let us know. And so this leads me to the third and final area that I want to cover today, which is this idea that we think about DevTools as a place that should be radically user-friendly. The team thinks a lot about this today, and this is one of the areas where we're really trying to drive changes. And again, this is really grounded in feedback that web developers send us every day. So DevTools is really complex. You may be aware of the elements panel, the console panel, sources panel, network panel, maybe a couple more, but there are actually more than 30 different tools in DevTools alone. If you click on the plus button in the top right corner of Edge DevTools right now, you'll see a list of all of the tools that you haven't opened yet and that you can use. And a lot of people don't even know that those exist at all. And it's really hard to see what's open in DevTools, how to switch from tool to tool. In this screenshot, for example, there's just a lot to see, right? It's a lot on the eyes. It's hard to know what you need and what's available to fix your problems. It's even more true if you've got DevTools docked to the side of your web browser, because the space becomes even more limited. And this is historical, right? 15 years ago, when Chromium DevTools was created, it had way fewer panels, and it made a lot more sense in this traditional UI. But 15 years later, with all of the new capabilities of the web that need to be debugged and that require special tools, before you know it, complexity just skyrocketed. And the problem today is web developers need to learn this. How do you learn it? How do you keep current with the new features that pop up in DevTools all the time? It shouldn't be your job to have to do that, right? On the contrary, DevTools should be the one teaching you. There's a few really interesting features in DevTools right now. If you do CSS grid development or Flexbox, for example, you can click on those little icons in the styles panel, and you'll get little icons that tell you how each property is going to impact the alignment of your CSS boxes. And it's a really nice use case where DevTools is trying to teach you something rather than you having to learn the tool. And so we began introducing new features along this train of thought. Here is a couple of examples. On the left side here, you can see a screenshot of the welcome page that we now have in DevTools. It's an opt-in page. You don't have to see it all the time, but it's a really nice onboarding experience, we think, because it contains links to documentation, tutorials, videos, also the list of what's new. So if you want to try a new feature that sounds interesting to you, you can do it right there in DevTools without having to go anywhere else. And the screenshot on the right is a feature we call Help Overlay, which you can try right now in Edge DevTools by pressing Ctrl-Shift-H on the keyboard. This keyboard shortcut is going to bring up the overlay on top of the tools that tells you what each part of the tools actually do. So you can move your mouse around the UI and switch to different panels. And as you do so, you'll have these little information pop-ups that will tell you the name of the tool, what the tool actually does, and also link you to documentation as well. So again, those are just two examples, but longer term, we want to do much more. We want to reconsider the entire DevTools UI. Because again, it was done 15 years ago, and we really think it should be brought into the 2020s, be more modern, more consistent with today's paradigms, and reduce clutter quite a lot. Which also leads me to this experiment that we're doing at the moment called Focus Mode. This is our first foray into modernizing the UI of DevTools. The screenshot you're seeing here may not look too different from the Chromium DevTools, but if you look closely at the top, it's actually less cluttered, more streamlined. There's less information to see at a glance. It's easier to switch from tool to tool. And as you start using it, you'll realize that it's also a lot easier to open tools as well as pin the tools that you keep on using all of the time. It's also a lot easier to remove the tools you don't need anymore. And it becomes even more interesting as you can opt into this vertical orientation mode as well. If you run out of space, you can switch to that mode, or it also can switch to it automatically if you decide to. And it makes it even quicker to switch from tool to tool. It's kind of like vertical tabs, but for DevTools. And this is just the beginning. We also want longer term to apply some of those design principles to the insides of the tools themselves to make them more predictable and also less cluttered. We think in this area that complexity should really be opt-in. Complexity in DevTools is here for a reason. Again, lots of capabilities, so we do need lots of tools, but it shouldn't be an experience that's cluttered and complex by default. It should really be streamlined and easy and user-friendly to onboard. And as you need more things, you should be able to add them on. Right now, this experiment, the Focus Mode experiment, is starting to appear in pre-release channels of Edge. And so if you have Canary or Dev installed already, you may start seeing this experiment turned on by default. And then you can decide whether you want to keep it or not. If you do want to try it now and you don't have it yet, you can just go into the settings of DevTools by pressing F1 and then go to the experiments section, and you can turn on the focus mode experiment. Otherwise, you can just wait and you'll see it appear at some point. So as a way to close this, I'd like to say that the Chromium DevTools are actually really good already, and we really don't want to mess with that, right? But we also heard from a lot of people like yourself that it could be better. And so by listening to people, by understanding real-world use cases, by spending time with people, by improving the onboarding experience and user-friendliness, and by integrating our tools in all of these other environments, we really do hope that the changes we're making are for the better. If you want to help us on this journey, do send your feedback. If you see anything wrong, use that feedback button in DevTools. Try out those new features. You can try focus mode, try the extensions, and then engage with us, engage with our team directly, join us on the GitHub discussions with the new repository. And that's it for me. So I want to thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a good day.